Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake, and I'm here with Lindsey Deluce and Kelsey McEwen. Welcome to CTV Your Morning, the podcast.
This week, we're taking a look at feelings, finance, and how to build a money mindset to grow your wealth.
We'll also share our conversation with Monica Myers, Canada's first runway model with Down syndrome. We talked to her about her groundbreaking career and her work with the largest children's rehabilitation hospital in Canada.
But first, we're starting this week's podcast with something that has entered Canada's federal election campaign, AI. And while voters are searching for information on candidates and parties, there is growing concern about mis- and disinformation.
So deepfake political ads, AI-generated videos, we're going to take a closer look at the methods being used trying to influence the outcome.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, how do we tell fact from fiction? That's where we bring in tech expert and futurist Sinead Baval to explain.
How can we expect this to be used in this election, and how important will the use of AI be?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think in general, this election in particular is likely to be quite a big target for foreign adversaries to try to sow distrust in our institutions and kind of fracture public cohesion. And so how a technology like AI plays into that is it gives foreign actors and adversaries an easier leg up to create believable content that could resonate with Canadians, confuse us, and sway our general opinion or narrative going into these elections. And I want to point out, it's often not a kind of viral deepfake video of something catastrophic. It's usually using AI to create believable social media accounts that seem like it could be a Canadian user, even a Canadian flag and hockey sticks in the profile, generating content that could resonate, but it's actually from foreign adversaries.
We're going to get to an example in just a moment, because I think that's what people are looking for. Like, how do I know what comes up in my feed? Is this real or AI? Just before we get to that, though, Liberal leader Mark Carney said part of Canada's sovereignty in relation to cyber warfare will be around AI. I want to give everybody a chance to hear what he had to say.
It's crucial that we're building those capabilities on Canadian technologies, to Canadian values, to protect Canadians, because we can't rely on foreign suppliers for them. That is one of the new realities that are there.
To paraphrase then, what he's saying is, because AI is initially human-generated, that needs to come from us. Why is it important that we've got sovereignty over our artificial intelligence?
This is absolutely critical. And an example that can put this into context is see how with social media, Canada is struggling to make sure that it aligns in terms of the algorithms and manipulation. We don't have a lot of control in how these platforms run because they're not based in Canada. They're not Canadian companies. So sovereign AI means Canada can build and run its own AI systems without over-reliance on other countries' technology or data. And this is vital. So we own the data, it's trained on our values, and it solves Canadian problems.
I want to get to some examples for people, and they may or may not have seen these, so let's run them in just a second. There have been reports that adversaries like China and Russia are likely going to create mis- and disinformation campaigns using AI, and we've known of this in past elections. Who is likely to be targeted, and what can voters watch out for?
Yes, so these efforts, they tend to target more vulnerable communities, Canadian diaspora, and undecided voters who don't tend to have strong opinions one way or another. So it's a little bit easier to manipulate or sway the narrative or sway public opinion. So in terms of what Canadians can look out for, and this is why it's really tricky with AI-generated content and the use of AI, because content can resonate very deeply with us. So my advice, first and foremost, we need to understand that foreign interference is happening, point blank. So we have to be extremely critical of what we come across online. Even if an account looks like it's Canadian, it has a flag and so forth, it could still be fake. So be skeptical of very sensational content that is very emotionally charged. Verify sources, and don't just check the credibility of a website. You might have to even check things like who's funding that site or that think tank or that initiative. Check sources, background, cross-check information across various news publications, and look for things like authorship and expertise. And finally, if you're unsure, don't share the content with more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we're on the verge of an AI revolution. Both the Liberals and the Conservatives have expressed the importance of investing in AI. What should voters pay attention to most when it comes to their plans for AI?
I would say, and even if this isn't mentioned overtly, The person leading Canada into the AI age will be one of the most important leaders in our history. So pay attention to things like AI policy to shape Canada, to boost Canada's economy. How is the leader going to ensure that Canadian workers are trained and prepared for the jobs of the future? How are we going to use AI to strengthen healthcare? And understand that AI also possesses its own national security threats and risks. So also think about that as you go to make your decision at the polls.
Everybody has a different version of what being on time looks like. For some friends, it might be arriving fashionably late. For others, it could be showing up 15 to 20 minutes early. This is clocking what time everybody gets in.
How funny.
8:08. What I don't know here is what their actual start time is. Like, if it's 8 o'clock, all these people are
That's true.
Oh my God!
8:20.
If it was supposed to be 8 and someone the boss showed up at 8:20.
I'm guessing it's 8:30 is the call time. Party starts at 6. Guys?
Okay, this is a good scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, because we can't be late for our job. Like our job, you can't.
No.
Like there's no wiggle room there.
But parties are different. And you know what? It depends on the group of friends for us.
Yes.
And also, I am going to say this, and shout out to my Sri Lankan friends, but if the party starts at 7, don't even bother showing up till 8. And you're not eating till 10 p.m.
Do you know what happened to me over the holidays? I think I told you. But it was busy. And they were like, there's always 2 weekends in December where that's when people throw things. So there's like a couple things a night. It can be like that. So I had 3 things in one night. So I was trying to make it to all 3, including like a dinner at like one of my close friends' house. But there was also a party I was invited to with like a whole bunch of people, and that started at 7. So my plan was to go at 7 to the party.
I guess that
and
happens
then
here.
go to the dinner because it's dinner. Like I want to,
yeah.
anyway. So I show up, it said 7 o'clock. I show up at like 7:03, which is very unlike me in general. And so they answer the door, and I end up coming in with their children who are coming back from hockey practice.
Oh.
They're not ready. Yeah, they're like not changed. Like she's still upstairs. He answers the door, and then we awkwardly chat for like 10 minutes.
And they're probably like,
And
why
she's
is
like,
she here so early?
That's correct. They thought that at one point, so she comes down, and she's like, I heard you brought our kids home from hockey. And I was like,
Oh my God.
I didn't. I'm here for the party. I started to panic. All I wanted to do was look at my phone to see the start time. Did I mess it up?
Oh my gosh.
So by the time I was leaving, I had a great, it was nice because we got to really spend some time together for 45 minutes. But I wanted to check my phone to see if I had messed up.
For sure.
I hadn't. It said 7. But I was just trying to make it to a bunch of things, and I will never do that again. I will never do that again. It was
Don't be that
awful.
person. And you know that she's like, everyone's like, how'd the party go? Really good, but this one person showed up at like
And I wasn't even with
7.
Drew. Like it was solo.
Worst.
I know.
I'm just such a literal person that if you say 7, it is really hard for me to not come at like 7.
For a party?
Yes.
So when you know there's a lot of people coming?
Yeah. Like to me, like if you say 7
Yeah.
and you don't actually want people to come for 7, don't say 7.
Got it.
Because to me, like it was drilled into me as a kid, but then also particularly when I was in broadcasting school, I had an instructor say, if you show up late to something, you've just told someone else how much you respect their time.
Right.
And so that I cannot get rid of that.
That's work though.
No, that's life.
That's
it is like
life.
fully
Got
life.
it.
So when I show up late to someone or someone else shows up late, the whole time I'm sitting there being like, this is disrespectful, and then whole tizzy starts. So you say 7, I'm there.
Okay,
7,
that's good to know.
Probably 6:59.
You're early?
No,
You
I
can't
won't.
be early to a party.
No, I'll sit awkwardly in my car and wait.
Yeah,
And
no,
then I'll
that's-
walk up for the
polite.
the expected time.
Okay.
So,
Who
yeah.
are you? What do you do?
I don't know. It depends. Like I said, it depends on the party and it depends on the group of friends.
Right.
Yeah, like we had a party that the invitation was 7:30 on Saturday. Daryl and I rolled in like 8:10, which I thought was
I think
respectable.
that would be my normal,
Yeah.
apart from the thing that happened, my
Yeah.
normal, I'd probably be like an hour after, 45 minutes to an hour after.
Oh my God.
For a party,
Oh.
not for a dinner, but for a party.
Yes,
When I
and when
know
you're
there's a lot of
sending, and
people
when I
there.
send an invitation, because I have friends in my
Yeah.
life who are like, there's a wide spectrum of time management. So I will put like 7 o'clock or whatever, but
Yeah.
eating at 8. So if they want it, so just so they know, we're eating at 8.
Yeah.
And that's my hard time.
Right.
Because I want the food to be out there at the right time. So come anytime in between that, but no,
Yeah.
if you come after 8,
She'll
you're
be
getting
there at
leftovers.
I'll be in your driveway at 6:50 waiting.
You'll be the person I'll call down to as I'm getting my makeup on. I'll be right down.
That was me. Forgiveness, it can be really hard, especially if you feel emotionally wronged. It can be really hard to forgive and move on. But our next guest says finding the strength to forgive can really free us of emotional burden, even improve our overall health. Emotional wellness expert Michelle Jacob is here to talk more about this. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Lindsay.
So let's start off by talking about the science behind forgiveness.
Yes.
It is a lot more important than people realize, so walk us through that.
Yes, of course. So forgiveness, people think is an emotional thing, right? But forgiveness, the act of forgiveness actually resets us physiologically and psychologically. So brain scans actually show that when someone is forgiving, or let's say imagining forgiving a person.
Okay.
What ends up happening in my brain at the time is activates this part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. So think of planning, prioritizing, even our emotional regulation. That's done by the prefrontal cortex. And what it ends up doing, it lowers activity in the amygdala. So think of the fear response, the stress response. That activity is lowered. Now, what ends up happening is it drops the cortisol levels in our body. So that's your stress hormone. So when the stress hormone drops, your immune system improves. People who struggle with anxiety and depression, they notice their symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression, symptoms of PTSD decrease.
There's a lot of goodness that comes out of it.
Exactly.
Actually, do you want to try moving your hair off your microphone? I think we're just getting a little bit.
Oh, are you?
Let's try that. Yeah, perfect.
Is that better?
Yeah, we want to make sure that we hear all of your messaging as well. So why do we find, I can take this for you. Why do we find it so difficult to forgive other people? What is that?
I feel like there's a huge misconception that if we forgive someone, we're condoning their actions.
I feel that way.
Yeah.
But that's not the case?
That's not the case, because you feel if I forgive someone, I'm freeing them from what happened. But the reality is when you forgive someone, you're freeing yourself. You're freeing yourself from carrying that emotional baggage that has been weighing you down for years.
But what if you're still... That's a hard one for me, right? Because
Yeah.
I know in theory the concept is great. But what about if you but they were wrong?
Yes.
They were wrong.
Yes.
And
were
and
wrong.
let's say they have not apologized. How do you forgive somebody who's not apologized or said sorry for their actions?
So I actually want to give you an acronym for
Okay.
that. So I use an acronym called ART, the art of forgiveness.
Okay.
So the A in ART stands for you want to acknowledge how you're feeling, right?
Okay.
You don't want to push it away. You don't want to suppress it. You want to acknowledge how you're feeling completely. Acknowledge that, yeah, you know what? It really hurt me that they didn't apologize. It really hurt me what they did. R, you want to release. So let's say they haven't given you an apology, but you don't want to carry this burden anymore. You get to write a letter. You get to write a letter to them. You don't have to email it to them. You don't have to send it. You can burn it, but you get to release it. Now, what's important, the next thing after the letter is you want to close your eyes and you want to visualize. Visualize a healed version of that person because it's hurt people who hurt others. So this person, the way they treated you, going back to your question, the way they treated you has nothing to do with you. People tend to take it personally. We tend to take it personally how someone is acting. But the reality is their actions are a reflection of who they are, their wounds, their insecurities, their trauma, and nothing to do with us. So R is release.
Okay.
So you're visualizing them apologizing to you. T in art is changing. You want to transform your story. So what's the story you're giving the situation? Are you the victim in the story? Because we have a choice to come out victorious, to realize, hey, this is a growth opportunity for me. What did I learn about myself and the world? So that's art.
That's great. And what about self-forgiveness? Why is that important?
So self-forgiveness is actually very important because it's holding on to guilt and shame is equally damaging. So it's equally damaging as holding on to resentment. So if we don't self-forgive, we are in a stress response all the time. So again, go back to art.
Yeah.
One of the ways you can forgive yourself is accept, I did something wrong.
Yeah.
And self-compassion, I am human. I did the best I can in that moment, and I am choosing to forgive myself.
You do have choice.
Monica Myers is Canada's first model with Down syndrome, and she's been breaking barriers since her debut runway back in 2022, when she was just 14 years old. Not only is she a strong advocate for others with Down syndrome, but her mission is for everyone to feel beautiful and be true to themselves. Monica and her mom, Stephanie, are in studio with us this morning. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Thank you.
Great to have you here. Monica, I want to start with you. You've now been modeling for about 3 years now. What made you want to be a model?
Well, when I was at a fashion show, I was like, oh my gosh, these models are incredibly beautiful. They're so good.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I would like to be a model as well. And that was beautiful. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And my mom asked me if I was a model, and I was like, yes, definitely.
And then where did that conversation go from there, Stephanie?
Well, I just asked her if she wanted to be a model, and she was really excited about that. So, you know, if your child wants to do soccer, you find a soccer organization for them. So it was exciting. I found an opportunity for her.
I want to ask you about the confidence it takes to walk on a runway. And Monica, you and I were just laughing about this. I've done a few sort of charity ones before, and it's very intimidating because you have to walk with this assurance and this confidence. Where do you go in your head or your heart to have that confidence when you're walking on a runway?
Oh, I knew that I can do this, and I took a deep breath, and I tell myself that I got this.
Yeah, and you do, because we were showing this footage of you strutting it on the runway, and you're amazing. You also work with Holland Bloorview Kids, which is a fantastic place in the city of Toronto. You learned a lot there as a kid. What's one of your favorite memories of being at Bloorview?
My favorite memories are swimming, because I learned how to swim there,
Yeah.
and music therapy, because I love to sing.
You love to sing.
Yeah.
Okay, you can perform, you can model. Listen, you're almost at the triple threat. Stephanie Monica was recently named as an ambassador with Holland Bloorview. Their capes, which is what you're wearing right now, Capes for Kids campaign. What does this full circle moment mean from you, from going to being a kid who's swimming and singing at Bloorview to now being an ambassador?
Well, I think, you know, Monica's message is one of inspiration, inclusion, and authenticity. And to join forces with Holland Bloorview and the Capes for Kids campaign is really powerful, because any person with a disability is a superhero in their own right. So to be able to join forces and to show the ability and to allow these kids to show their superpower and to feel that inner power is really great.
Now, Monica, I see you're wearing your cape because you are an ambassador, but you also have your own campaign called I Am Brave and Beautiful, which is on your T-shirt there. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. So when I did this interview, when I was with her, the interviewer asked me if I was nervous. I replied, I'm not nervous because I'm brave and beautiful.
I love that.
So it became my business, I'm brave and beautiful, and make these wristlet bracelets to empower others to believe in themselves, to pursue their own dreams.
Oh, I love that. You've got a bracelet there with you.
Yes.
And it's got a little heart on it. Can I see this up close? Thank you. I'm going to flip it around so we can see it. I am brave and beautiful. I love that. I love that you're wearing it on your chest. Amazing. You've walked, Monica, more than 50 runway shows. So what are your tips, not only for strutting it on the runway, but in life to feel brave and beautiful?
Yes. So just be yourself, be you, and show that you got this. And you can take a deep breath.
I am taking a deep breath right now, and I'm putting on I Am Brave and Beautiful because I need to be reminded of that every day as well. You're listening to Your Morning, the podcast, where we bring you some of the best conversations from our show every week. Join us live on CTV every weekday, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic on CTV CTV News Channel or on your CTV News app.
If you're struggling to save money, you might want to explore the connection between finance and feelings. Our next guest says saving money isn't solely about math and numbers. There is an emotional component as well, and shifting your mindset from saving to growing could be the key to that. Here to explain is certified financial planner Martha Adams. Great to see you. I love this topic.
Thank you.
So
Great
let's
to see you.
Yeah, you as well. So let's get into this. You say saving is about more than strategy, more than just math. What do you mean by that?
So it's the solutions that are in your story. It's not in the math, because money was a human experience far before it was about financial ideas and strategies. So understanding your money story, your human experience, and your emotional associations at their source is what's key to financial confidence in every aspect of money.
What do you mean by that? Do you just mean like how you feel about money, how you were brought up? Do you talk about money, that kind of thing?
All of that.
Okay.
So how you were brought up, what your experiences were, what you were told, what you internalized, right? And so then when you think about the word saving, for example, what does it make you think and feel?
Because a lot of people, when they think of saving, it can feel very restrictive, right?
Exactly.
Can you help us understand why we feel that way?
So the key really is in the layers of your story, and that started in your upbringing. So if you think back to your upbringing, for many of us, we had a connection seeing our parents earning money, right? They would go to work. We would see expenditures happening, whether that was going to the grocery store or bills coming in. What we really didn't have experience with was the idea of growing money, right? Or allocating to goals. Then we grow up and we start earning our own money, and the idea of saving takes away from our spending, right? So it's the idea of delayed enjoyment, right? Or something that's restrictive. And then from a societal perspective, we see that buying is really something that's celebrated. And that
consumer culture.
And the idea of saving is something that, again, is restrictive or holds you back. And then finally, when we do try and save, right, we have this emotional experience with the word. So we think about saving for a rainy day or squirreling away. So scarcity mindset around
So you said something so interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about word association. Yeah. And you say even just using the term, and you used it, growing your money instead of saving your money can make a big difference. How so?
So the idea of saving is connected to holding yourself back, doing, making do with less. Growing, though, is a word that belongs to you. It's connected to possibility, opportunity, expansion, right? So it's really connected to you and your goals. So asking yourself about your goals, focused on how you can, achieve those in the most effective manner. And it really is this appreciative idea, right? Focused on where you want to be going.
Okay, so how do we grow our money effectively?
So the first thing really is to focus on those goals that we talked about. So whether that's 1, 3, 5, even 10-year goals, right? And then making sure you have that growth mindset. So focusing on what you're growing towards. From there, now you can start to automate what you're allocating to your investments. That's really key, and giving meaning to the money that you're allocating. So a way to do that is label your investment account. So if you're going to say, we used to say the idea of retirement savings. Why don't we instead say financial independence, right? That gives it greater meaning and value. And then finally, now that you're connected with your financial voice, consider amplifying that, maybe working with a trusted, licensed, or designated professional to help you with your goals.
And it's very easy to rename those accounts.
Really easy to rename those accounts.
Look at the 3 dots.
Right? Yeah. And then it reminds you of the fact that you are growing, that this is your conversation. It really is focused on you.
Kels, I know this from working with you. Weather forecasting depends on a massive network of data. And right now, that network is under strain.
Yeah, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it has cut 1,300 jobs. Some of those jobs are from the National Weather Service. So everything from forecasts of hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, it's impacted. Inevitably, Canada could also be affected.
So, big question, right? What does this mean for Canadian forecasting and how we prepare for disasters?
You use this data and this information every single day. How's it used? What's it used for?
It's my entire job, Anne-Marie. I'd like to say in this time that I choose Canadian, but to do a weather forecast, you just simply can't do that because you would be doing a disservice to the forecast. The reason being is that we are as good as all the tools available to us. And to build the weather forecast, not only do I look at Canadian data, first and foremost, the radar, sites, the satellite data, but we also have to look at the computer modeling. So there's a Canadian model, there's American modeling, there's European modeling. You look at all of that, and together, taking the data, you kind of pick and choose, okay, this is how I think the forecast will work out. These different weather models have different resolutions. So some do a better job at precipitation forecasting. Some can handle the Great Lakes or the Fundy Coast or the Rocky Mountains a little bit better. So you have to look at everything. And together, with that, you put together the weather puzzle to figure out what will actually happen.
So if you don't have access to that, then what happens?
Well, when we don't have access to that data, we've already seen some of the impacts of it. The U.S., in certain weather sites in Maine and in New York and in Alaska, they've stopped releasing the weather balloons. And these weather balloons, they measure the weather data at the surface, but all the way up higher in the atmosphere. And this is things like temperature and precipitation and the pressure, the wind speed. And with that real-time data, that's what we base the future forecast on. So when these sites are not being collected, when these weather balloons are not being released, we don't have that. All of a sudden, that data becomes invisible to us. So that, unfortunately, can lead to a situation where perhaps the future forecast is less accurate because it's not working off of real-time data. The other big thing, I think, is that weather doesn't necessarily understand borders.
Right.
And most of our weather systems in Canada have time in the U.S. Some of them start in the U.S. Things like Colorado lows are some of our biggest weather systems in winter in Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada.
Right.
Texas lows are really dynamic as well. They start in Texas. Alberta clippers start in northern Alberta, but they dive down into the U.S.
Right.
And we have to see how they behave in the United States to be able to accurately say, hey, this system has a history of doing this. I think it will then do X, Y, Z in Canada.
It just trying to think of you doing what it is that you do, and you spend hours doing it even before we go live on the air. Blows my mind to think of you not having access to all your tools. I know what I'm concerned about, but I'm not a meteorologist. What are your biggest concerns when you look at this?
Accuracy. That's the number one. Weather is evolving and it is changing. And I will say, all of this data, all these radar sites, they're still going to exist. But one has to wonder, when cuts are being made, are they going to be maintained? Are they going to be updated with the same type of urgency that they are now? We've already seen how much research improves weather forecasting. When I started forecasting 15 years ago, a 10-minute lead time for a tornado warning was considered excellent, gold standard. Last year, the National Weather Service, because of investment in research, was able to issue a tornado warning 46 minutes prior to a tornado happening in that area. That saves lives. That saves people, allows them time to evacuate. If we don't have that same type of investment as weather continues to evolve and become more extreme, that's where I get concerned.
Yeah, well, that leads to response and how quickly we can respond to people in disaster. Let's talk more about those ripple effects of losing the data then. Like, what's the trickle down?
Well, I think you won't necessarily have the most accuracy in your weather forecast. Things like hurricane forecasting, for example, for the first time since the 5-day forecast was first introduced, this year we're seeing that cone of uncertainty shrink. And that's a good thing because we're able to say, hey, we're more accurate with this. As we go into the future, if you don't have that same type of investment, are we able to accurately forecast where hurricanes will go to the same type of degree that we are doing now? I hope so. But that's scary to say, I hope, when it comes to something like a hurricane.
What blows my mind from a news coverage perspective is that, we've done all of these stories about how things like insurance are changing and rebuilding is changing based on climate and weather events that are happening in various communities. So it seems so counterintuitive to cut back on information and our research at a time when we were just starting to make moves forward.
Well, I think a lot of people will say that, oh, we don't need the human element. We've got all this data. Why do we need humans looking at it? Well, the reality is, if you're looking at your weather app, where do you think that data is coming from? That data is coming from these radar sites. It's coming from the satellites that the National Weather Service operates. Something like GOES, which is one of the biggest satellite coverages we have in North America, that is manned by people and maintained by people. If you fly, you're interacting with this data. If you have any sort of interaction with the ocean, if you're a fisher person, if you are hoping to surf.
If you're a farmer.
If you're a farmer, you're looking at this data. And if that data in the US is not necessarily performing to the utmost that it has in the past, that's used globally. And so there's impacts even with the European data. The European data can use stuff from NOAA to formulate its accuracy. So everything is connected. And when one area starts to not be able to necessarily hold its weight, you feel that everywhere.
If you are tossing and turning at night, you are not alone. But here's something that might surprise you. Those wake-ups are beneficial.
Yes, I'm sure, for sure. So new research suggests tiny wake-ups, like teeny tiny wake-ups, they actually help improve memory. They can even lower the risk of diseases, including Alzheimer's.
And they have a name.
They do.
Love it. Okay, this is the name. Those brief wake-ups are called, ready for it? Micro-arousals. Sleep expert Amanda Jewson explains.
This is like breaking news for sleep.
Well, I love this because I help people with insomnia, and half of our conversations are really coaching people around, you don't have to be afraid of waking up. Waking up is a natural, normal, and now healthy part of waking up, which is really cool. But I want to be really clear about what a microarousal is, because they do differ from like a more pronounced waking. So what you're describing is not a microarousal. So a microarousal is a very short, almost imperceptible 3 to 5 second wake that happens in our light stage of sleep. So we have 4 stages of sleep in our cycle. We have 2 stages. We call it NREM, non-REM sleep. Then we have deep sleep. We have REM. We wake, and that is probably the wake that you remember. And then we go back to sleep. These microarousals are happening in those first 2 stages of non-REM sleep. They're anywhere from 3 to 15 seconds. And we often, ideally, we should have about 20 per hour. So they're a little bit different from the wakings that you remember.
Okay, so if we're waking up and looking at the clock and realizing what time it is, not necessarily a good thing.
Exactly.
But these microarousals where we're not even necessarily aware we've woken up, you're saying that they're good, and not only good, they can actually clean our brain?
It's really cool. So
what does that even mean?
I know. And you know, I've come on these shows and I read a lot of sleep studies, and good scientists would say, look, we know that the brain is doing something great when it sleeps. We know that it's clearing waste. We have a lymphatic system in our brain, and that system is responsible for getting rid of the yucky stuff in our brain that we don't need anymore, okay? So we know, we just don't know how. This study has actually identified that mechanism, and it's those microarousals. So when we are having those brief awakenings, we're kicking out the yucky stuff that our brain doesn't need, and it's the stuff that can be responsible for diseases like Alzheimer's. So this is a really exciting piece of research, especially for folks dealing with brain disease.
My brain works in that, now I'm picturing, you know that scene from Inside Out where there's like the little guys pulling the stuff off the shelves?
I love
I
Inside
picture
Out.
those little dudes at work.
Well, this is it. They're doing their job. That's how they do it.
Okay, so you say this can also help improve memory.
That's right. So again, why I love this study. The authors directly say there is a causal link, okay, not correlational, causal between these microarousals and the brain's ability to hold and store and process memories, which is unbelievable. So we know that when we're able to have these microarousals, our brain is doing better things. Our brain is able to store the things that is happening during the day, process the information a lot better.
Okay, so Amanda, what could this data mean for the future of treatment specifically for something like insomnia or other sleep disorders?
Well, number one, this is exciting because people are afraid of waking up. And I deal with sleep, and there's a whole, industry set to sell you a thing for you to sleep like you can't remember. And what I love about this research is, waking should be normalized. Waking should be a discussion around normal sleep. So I love that. We also know that folks dealing with brain disease, this is really exciting stuff. So we could potentially create interventions that could look at the ideal amount of microarousal. So the study's authors talked about you don't want too many, you don't want too few. You want the Goldilocks effects of like just the right amount. The study suggested around 20 per average. So we could maybe create interventions. I'm really excited about maybe having conversations around like supplementation, medications, things that we are actively taking to help our sleep that could actually be stopping this process of microarousals in our light sleep. So it's about time we had those conversations about normal, unmedicated, unsupplemented sleep that actually has a really healthy process for our brain.
What I'm getting from you is this is like new research in the first step of more research that's really going to help our sleep.
Totally.
For the average person watching, is there anything we should be doing to try and help these microarousals, or they just got to happen?
They're happening without you knowing. I mean, the only way that you could really know is have a sleep study, but really the best thing that you can do is trust that your body is doing this. Your body has a whole process set up to help you sleep. Trust it, it's working.
Linz, we have talked about this on the show before. You've shared how you have struggled to stay asleep through the night. It's been a big journey for you.
Journey is a nice way to put it.
Are you still on that journey?
I am locked into this journey, even if I don't want a ticket for this journey, but I'm on it. Because I've said to you and anybody, I can't believe that you go to bed and then you set your alarm, and then the next time you wake up or open your eyes is when your alarm goes off. Like, I have not done that. It's 20 years maybe.
I know, and I think when the segment first was pitched to us, there was so much hope in your eyes.
There was so much hope. I was like, maybe this is working for me, but it's not.
No, so like what Amanda was saying is it's really not those types of wake-ups where you see the alarm clock. That's not what she's talking about. These are like things that are so imperceptible to your sleep that they're just happening and you don't even know. And the fact that she said it can happen like up to 20 times an hour blew my mind. But I think it's really cool for the future of sleep. For you, Lindsay, I don't know what's cool because I don't have any suggestions. It's so weird.
Is it?
I don't think it's unusual.
I don't think it's
hear
that
this a lot
unusual.
from people, and there's a lot of different factors, and it's hard to know which one it is.
I know, and we talk about sleep a lot on this show.
Yeah.
I think generally that's one of the main questions people want to know. It's like, what time do you wake up in the morning? What time do you go to sleep? And do you nap? So I wonder if it's that third piece that I need to start to explore more, because I don't nap. And I know that you do like a 20-minute, Anne-Marie, you do a 20-minute.
Anywhere from like 20 minutes to an hour.
I wonder if that would help me. Because my problem is that if I nap during the day, then it kind of messes me, it 100% messes me up for the night. Then I can't fall asleep. I have no problem falling asleep. It's the staying asleep part. But if I nap, I have trouble falling asleep.
Yeah. Do you know what I find so wild? And we talk so often about napping, but how much people who are on like a quote unquote normal schedule also really feel like a daily nap would be beneficial. And I look to other parts of the world where like
napping is cultural and very accepted.
And I get it. Like we love the hustle, we love the grind in North America. Yeah, right. That's
I think we're just ingrained that way, right? Because you do go over to some, a country in Europe, many countries in Europe, where you'll go to try to buy something at 1 p.m. and there's a sign in the window that says, we'll be back at 3. Because there's that downtime, or we're having a big long lunch with family. That kind of idea. There's something to our pace of life in North America that we're just so used to that when you take yourself out of this environment, you go, wait a second, there may be another way to live here.
Do you know what we need to do?
What?
So not only do we need to go on a trip where there's a place that has an afternoon siesta, but then we should also ask all of those people about their evening sleep. Because if their nighttime sleep is better and they have room for daily naps, I think that's the key, Lindsay.
But dinner's also at 11 p.m. at night.
Well, I was going to say, so to that point, when you have cultures that take a break like that, everything starts later. So we get obsessed about, I've got to be in bed by 9 p.m. and I've got to get these 8 hours. And if you're trying to jam everything into the evening also, that's just not going to work. Go to work.
I'm traveling soon to a country in Europe, and we are making dinner reservations for 10:30 p.m.
Oh my God.
That might be a bit, you're going to need to nap.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm just going to I'll just stay on Toronto time.
Yeah. Well, that? and you won't be doing a morning show while you're vacationing.
That's true. Anyway, it is a conversation that continues. It is obviously like a glimmer of hope for the future of sleep analysis to see, how that can roll out.
For sure. We are so glad you joined us today.
If you want more of these great conversations, don't forget to download or hit subscribe to Your Morning, the podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
And of course, we would love for you to watch us live weekday mornings on CTV CTV News Channel or on your CTV News app. Start your morning with us.